Hey gamers, it's G from the corner, and today we're going to be talking about Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, which just a few weeks ago dropped on the Nintendo Switch. Now, it's been a pretty busy month for Nintendo. They announced the Switch 2, but lest we forget, they released this little, hack job of a port, I guess you could say. It's not really that high of quality. Clearly released to market the Donkey Kong theme park that just opened in Japan a little over a month ago now. And for whatever reason, dropped on the same day as the Nintendo Switch 2 announcement, which, kind of took the wind out of the sails of this release for a lot of people. I mean, look, in general, this wasn't a very exciting looking release. It looked like another Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, a sub-HD game, touched up very little. In my opinion, this game looks better, but that might just be because I think the original looks better than Luigi's Mansion 2 anyway. I think the art style is a lot easier to translate since there are higher quality textures, as the Nintendo Wii could output at a higher resolution than the 3DS, and, they made a few changes to the lighting and, Donkey Kong's fur texture. There's a few little changes here, that make it more than just a simple dolphin upscale, but overall, you could tell this was kind of slapped together because, the Donkey Kong brand has kind of been inactive for the last 6 or 10 years, depending on who you ask. So we should probably put something out, especially since we're, releasing a multi-million-dollar theme park in the holiday of 2024. And here we are, Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. I love the DK series, and I've been pretty miffed that we haven't gotten a new game in a while. So I was down to pick this up, high price tag or not. Returns is a fine game. I never had any issues with it. Is it the best Donkey Kong game? The best country game? No, definitely not. I would not consider it as good as 2 and Tropical Freeze, and depending on the day of the week, it'll be in 3rd, 4th, or 5th place. I don't know. It depends on how I feel about the other 2 games in the original trilogy that day. But, it's still a fine game. It's still a quality title, and it makes sense to bring this one back, obviously because the theme park is themed around it, but also because the series has had no real brand identity for the past decade and a half, so they kind of have just been using the Returns stuff for everything, and hey, we haven't re-released Returns yet, so sure, why not? Let's push that iconography one more time. Here's Donkey Kong Country Returns. Here it is on Switch at full price. It's so odd when, I'm tasked with coming up with a description of this game where the best I can really say is it is a generic Donkey Kong game, which, isn't a bad thing because this game is damn good. It's not like they made 4 games like this with less interesting level design each time, and it's not like the level design is even uninteresting. There's so much going on in all of these levels, It might not have the immediate, irreplaceability of Tropical Freeze's level design and themes, but, there's still some quality stuff in here. Some of the ruins levels, factory levels, and cliffside levels are pretty great. I love the forest levels, I'll remember some of these locations, I remember some of these stages for sure, but there's just a lot more here. I feel like just to have more here, Tropical Freeze only has 6 worlds, and they all have very distinct things going on in every single level, but Returns has 8 worlds, and it's there's the jungle, there's the beach, there's the caves, the mines, the cliffs, the ruins, the forest, the factory, the lava world. It feels like I'm going down the Mario list of worlds, but it's not that, and it's kind of weird. I don't know. This game's good, again, good theming, good level design. Moment-to-moment gameplay is fantastic. The controls in this game get the job done. They're definitely more slippery than the original trilogy, and, in some cases, I think it's fine. Platforming levels feel great with this more loose-feeling Donkey Kong, but bosses really just do not work with it at all. There are some where I feel like I have to jump pixel perfect, but it's kind of unresponsive. I don't know. It's weird, there's a lot of bosses where I'm like, this is not fun. Actually, most of the bosses, in my opinion, aren't very fun at all. I think the follow-up, honestly, has worse bosses, but, this game has more of them, so I don't know. They're not very... They're either nothing special, or they're genuinely just a bore to get through. They do a boss refight, but there's so much different about him. It's why didn't you just make a new boss at that point? I don't get it, man. Maybe it was an homage to the original trilogy, which had a few boss refights. I specifically remember DKC1 having a few boss refights, but if I'm comparing your bosses to DKC1's bosses, you know there's a bit of a problem there. The utilization of Diddy Kong, and I guess the other partners in Tropical Freeze, always kind of was confusing to me. Okay, so Diddy is a main pivotal character, but he's basically just a power-up in this game, you get him, and you have 2 hits with him, and then if you get hit twice, that's it, he's gone, and in many of the levels of the game, you're not going to be seeing him again, because there was only 1 DK barrel in the level, so you're just kind of stuck with Donkey Kong for a lot of the levels, and these levels are pretty damn long, so it's kind of unfortunate if you lose him after the last DK barrel in the level. Oh well, what are you going to do? He's playable in co-op as well, And, he can, like, shoot a projectile when he slams the ground for some reason. Very, very odd, but I guess that gives me the excuse to start getting into the changes with this version of the game. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD was handled by Forever Entertainment, who have not had the best track record. They did a remaster of Panzer Dragoon, House of the Dead, and I think one or two other Sega games, to very mixed results. I mean, I've always looked at these games, and from afar they look fine, but I don't know, people always talk crap about them, so maybe they aren't that great. I don't know. I haven't played either of them. I've been interested in trying both, but I always get dissuaded because people say they're not very good. But obviously this is a different kind of remaster. Those games were taking old, Dreamcast and Saturn games and just completely redoing them from the ground up, whereas this is just a Wii game. This is a Wii upscale with, like, new textures and new lighting. And I mean, Nintendo trusted them to do this. This is the game that they're marketing alongside their theme park. They must want to have, some level of quality here. And while from what I've heard online, it is a better effort than their previous remasters, this ain't some Bloober Team redemption arc over here. They didn't make the best version of Donkey Kong Country Returns by a landslide, no questions asked. There are a few hiccups in here. For one, frame dips. I mean, there's not that many of them. I noticed 2 as I was playing through the game, but I'm going to be honest, kind of unexcusable. This is a Wii game. This is a Wii game running on a Switch. This game came out 15 years ago. There's no way this can't be running on the Switch. Come on, dude, Tropical Freeze is right there. That's kind of pathetic, honestly. I mentioned the lighting being improved before, but honestly, some effects have kind of been tarnished. The 2 biggest ones is that there's a certain sunset early in the game that just is not there. It's just gone. You go to the area and the sun just vanishes and it's just a pink sky. And then in the one of the last levels of the game, in the final world, there's these big lava bubble enemies that have these big kind of spherical connectors. Okay, you shouldn't be able to tell that they're a bunch of spheres. They should blend together. They do in the Wii version, but in this version you can tell that they're spheres and the models flicker. It's really weird and really, I was just kind of dude, what happened? What happened at the end of the development? They just didn't test this stuff. Speaking of didn't test this, they ruined the multiplayer. Okay, look, I never played Tropical Freeze in multiplayer, or Returns in multiplayer for that matter, and I kind of wanted to, but I didn't really line up, and I was like, okay, well, whatever, who cares? I don't need to play this game in multiplayer, but apparently it's not fun in multiplayer. In the original game, there's a lot of pixel-perfect platforming, jump on this enemy to get to this platform or something. You really need to utilize your environment in that game. But they wanted co-op to still be playable, so they made it so that when Donkey Kong jumps on an enemy, Diddy Kong can jump on it for a little bit too. It kind of makes sense because, they're all tikis, kind of looking like bongos. So the little top part of the bongo just kind of sticks around for a second. So, you can jump on it. It works perfectly. It makes so much sense. The enemies are clear as day for that. It works amazingly, but they took this out of the 3DS version. I don't know why. It must have been hardware limitations, whatever. It seems like they might have ported over the 3DS version because not only are the 9 extra levels they added in the bonus world here, but this is back. You can't jump on an enemy after Donkey Kong jumps on it, which makes some of the temple stages literally unplayable in multiplayer unless you are just willing to let one of the Kongs die or just jump on your back, I guess. Yeah, I forgot you could do that in this game. It's very lame. It's very, very lame. Again, this is just such a weird port from Nintendo. I actually kind of like this more than Luigi's Mansion 2, but that is entirely because I like this game a lot more than Luigi's Mansion 2. It's funny listening to people talking specs about this. They're like, oh, Luigi's Mansion 2 actually got a fantastic remaster. The texture work, everything looks so much better. And then they talk about Returns this looks like ass doo-doo garbage. And, it's weird because I'm, I guess, kind of misremembering both games. You see, I never played a lot of Dark Moon, so really all I've had to go off of it has been footage in the last few years. When I originally played the game, I only got maybe a mansion or 2 in, right? So I don't really remember how crusty that game really looked on 3DS, whereas this game I played on 3DS. Returns 3D was the version of Returns I grew up with, so I'm used to it looking real crusty. So this looks fantastic. This is an insane upscale, but that's the thing. There's a Wii version of the game, and that's likely where they pulled all of those assets from. So in reality, it's not really that impressive of an upscale remaster or whatever you want to call it. So in my mind, I think of this as a higher quality release than Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, but there's more wrong here, Like that game, do I recommend this to anybody? No, not really. I mean, okay, if you have played every single Donkey Kong Country game, except for Returns, and you really want to play Returns, and your only option is the Switch, then, I mean, yeah, I get this game. That's what the purpose of this thing is. I'm sure it's going to be marketed as the key marquee Donkey Kong game for the holidays. I mean, with the Switch 2 out, I'm sure they'll still try and push some Switch 1 games, probably put this game on a sale, that's for sure. But I don't know, it's not really a high quality work. It's clearly something that was put together because they had a theme park opening, and there has not been a Donkey Kong game in 11 years. That is kind of atrocious. There will definitely be one soon enough. We can see his redesign in Mario Kart clearly indicating that Nintendo has plans for the ape. Or at least I think that's what it communicates. I don't know. We'll see what happens. There'll be a Donkey Kong game in the next 3 years. I mean, I said that in 2020, and look at where we are now. Hey, we got something. We got a Port of Returns in the theme park. Woohoo. Love being a Donkey Kong fan. I don't know, man. This is a weird release. It's a weird release. They dropped it the same day they announced the Switch 2. It's like a Trojan horse. It's like they were trying to tell people they wouldn't announce it that day by saying the game was coming out that day, but they did. Very, very weird, Nintendo. I'm looking forward to your next release, remaster of another game that I am not going to play because I don't play Xenoblade. Whatever, I'll stop being cynical. I like Returns. Returns HD is not a good port job. It's way overpriced, but if you really, really want it, I mean, you're going to get exactly what you paid for. Yeah, there's no new features as well. I guess I should have mentioned that, but I mean, it's kind of obvious. You can kind of tell from the way everybody else and myself have been talking about this game. That's really all I have to say about it, though. Keep yourselves cornered for more Donkey Kong, hopefully, and Nintendo and Switch 2. All the good stuff. I'll see you guys on the next one.